Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of Ladies at UX. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am Apurva. I'm a senior UX researcher at Mobi System. I have been in user research for about 10 years now. I've previously worked at Spotify, Amazon, and also at Kantar. I'm also a mentor at OwnPath. I've been here in Sweden for about 4 years now. And I think the Swedes have a day for desert, which is super cute. That is my LinkedIn profile. So I would love to connect with you guys. So feel free to scan it, send me a connection. Thank you so much. I'll keep it for 2 seconds. Okay, cool. So I wanted to talk to you about the story of how Spotify and IKEA came together to create Spotify Tap feature on IKEA Vappari. And as you can see, I cannot resist a cheesy title, so that's why match made in Swedish heaven. Okay, so this is the agenda of what we'll be learning or going through. So okay, so what happened? IKEA and Spotify, how did that happen? So basically in 2021, IKEA came to Spotify to explore how we can collaborate together to create a product. And just 6 months back, Spotify had done a research about a feature called Spotify Tab. Back then, it was called Spotify One Touch on the headphone, which was really popular when users liked it. It was well received by the partners. And the lady who did that research is right there, Rosa, the legend. Okay, so we did that research, right? So what is this Spotify Tab then? So basically, Spotify Tab is a button and an easy way to listen to music or start music where you left off. So for now, let's imagine you click a button, you start off Spotify where you left off. You click the button once again, it changes the music for you. So that was Spotify Tap. So Spotify Tap is currently on all of these. And like I said previously, we had done research on the headphones, right? So quiz time now. Was another research really required? It's an interactive session. Please feel free to. How many hands which says yes? Okay, so majority of you say no, because why? But it was required. Why was the research required? Like the question is this. Is it A, because the headphone research was outdated? Not cheating. Is it B, because it is important to own research when you're working with third-party partners? C, to reassure IKEA that it was a good idea, or none of the above? Okay, all right. It is partly B, but mostly none of the above. Because when you're working with two different devices, the context is different, right? When the headphone research happened, it's a private setting. Then the speaker is a setting which is social setting, right? So it's completely different. So different context brings in different problems and different usability issues that we don't foresee. Different devices also have different accessibility issues, right? On your headphones, right on you, you move anywhere you want to, it's right on your head. So you click a button, the Spotify Tap is right there. It's not the same with the speaker. If you move around, you have to come all the way to the speaker to tap the button and change the song or use the feature, right? So that's what happened. So that's the reason we convinced IKEA that, hey, listen, we need to do another research. We have proof of concept that this is good from the headphone research, but we need to do our own research to move forward. So what methodology did we use? So we had 20 users in total. And as you can understand that we had to do a diary study. We had to do a follow-up interview, because a diary study helps you understand, and evaluate performance of the device in that particular moment. And a follow-up interview will give clarity. But was that enough? Not really, because we thought an unboxing is something that is also going to be fascinating. Again, inspired by the headphone research, we thought unboxing could be a cool feature, cool methodology to have, because I think whenever you're testing technology or product, actually, it adds a lot of value to capture the first reaction of the user, the first use of how they're using the product, because that shows you somewhere how intuitive the product is for you. So if the first time they're able to understand everything, then it's a win already there, right? So what did we learn? I had to like this a lot of users said that. We never said that to IKEA though. Okay, look at this, right? This was the first draft of the manual that we made. So this is something that we found in unboxing, and we had very strict rules for the unboxing, right? We told the users, listen, it's very important that you open it only during the unboxing interview. Do not do it before, because then we lose out on things. So we had a very strict criteria there. And we observed that during unboxing, that it was a very nice behavior to see that when you think it's a simple device, users don't really need manual or won't go to a manual, right? So when they saw it was a Bluetooth speaker, they understood, oh, it's a Bluetooth speaker. I know how to handle it. I don't have to go through a manual for this. And they moved away from the manual. But the thing is, the manual was where we were trying to create awareness. And that was missed out in the initial stages because awareness was low. And even if you look at this, right, like Spotify One Touch, like it was previously called, comes somewhere towards in the end in the manual. It's not very obvious. It's not very intuitive. Okay, another question. Just by looking at it, can you tell me which is the Spotify tab button? Number 1, number 2, or number 3? Number 2. Hands for number 1. Okay, hands for number 2. And hands for number 3. Okay, cool. It was actually number 3. It was actually number 1. Actually, the power button. This button was where the Spotify tab was. So 1, it is not intuitive. The device itself, when you look at it, that, oh, this is the Spotify tab button. This is where I can find it. Because we are not hardwired to think that the power button can do anything else but on and off, right? So that was one of the issues that we saw. If you look at the manual as well, I can go back, sorry. If you look at the manual, in the draft manual that we had, nowhere did we mention in this visual as well that, hey, we have a Spotify tab button here. This can function as that, right? And the other one, which really kills me sometimes, is the UX copy of this, right? Use Spotify One Touch plays personalized music recommendation from your Bluetooth speaker with a touch of a button. You'll need to download Spotify app to use this feature. Sounds pretty standard to us who are in Spotify. But what users were thinking was that Spotify Tap is a feature inside your Spotify app. Or they thought that, oh, Spotify Tap is a new app altogether from Spotify. So this is a classic master class for UX copy and why UX writing is super important. Okay, quiz time again. What can you spot what could cause the confusion here when it comes to reading the manual? Like when you read the manual, what do you think could cause confusion? Any takers? Have you read it? This is talking about how the Spotify tab functions. It's talking about the functionality of it.
The button and the function and Spotify.
Okay.
The first step is to pair, and then in the second step, It's when it says, "Oh, you need to have the Spotify open when pairing for the first
Mhm.
time." That's not step 2. That's part of step 1.
Okay. Anything else?
Which power button?
Yeah.
Like if there's a power button on your phone too, there's probably something.
Ah, okay.
The Spotify apps, could that maybe be a problem too?
Okay. Any other? Okay.
So the problem with the power button has a few options.
Mhm.
Because you need to press one and then you need to press again.
Mhm.
Change something.
Mhm. Okay. All of you are correct. One issue that we saw was that it is extremely verbose, and people are like skimming through this as an instruction, right? The second one, everything that you said is correct, right? The second one, which we thought was super interesting, was the reading bias that comes with it, right? STHLM is Stockholm, because your brain fills in those gaps. That STHLM is Stockholm. Here, the same thing happened. Power button 3, they never thought it is power button which is number 3. They're pressing the power button 3 times. So the brain is reading it as that. So that also was one of the issues that we saw. So once this unboxing exercise was done with all the participants, we gave them clear instructions that, hey, you can use, we told them how to use the speaker. We told them now you can start using it, use it in multiple settings, right? Use it as in a social setting, in a private setting, use it as much as possible, and complete the diary study along as well. So when we started focusing on diary study, usually when we do diary studies, we collect qualitative insights, correct? How do you feel about a particular moment? Who is with you in that moment? How was your experience in that particular moment? These are all very qualitative inputs, and we don't use, and for quantitative input, we usually go to behavioral data to look at it. And we say, okay, they heard this particular song for 30 seconds or more, they pressed the button X number of times, etc., right? But we had an issue here. Because this is something that we were still testing, there was no way for us to instrument it. Basically, what it meant is we didn't know if somebody pressed the button, we don't know how many times they pressed the button. All of this was not developed on the back end side of things, right? So we had to get a little creative, and we had to come up with how can we tackle something like this. And then we thought, okay, what if we add some quantitative questions in this diary study? For example, we can ask them about, and actually data collection at this particular moment, although it is claimed and not behavioral, is still powerful enough to give us some sort of understanding where we stand on, what kind of moment it was and how the experience was. Because when you also look at the number, you have 20 users who are using it for about 2 weeks or 15 days. That is actually 300 moments that you're capturing. And it's good enough to get some sort of indication, if not be 100% sure about the data that you have received, right? So we ask questions like this, which is, who were you with? How many times did you press the button? How would you describe this particular moment? How would you rate this moment itself? So we got those sort of experiences and data, right? So what we were also trying to tackle was this hypothesis that we had. If I press Spotify tap one too many times, does that mean I'm engaging more with it and it's a good thing? Or does that mean I'm not happy with the recommendation, that's why I'm pressing it one too many times? So we didn't know where we stood, right? So that was something that we had issue understanding, and we thought this can solve the problem to a certain extent. Again, we found out there were triggers when people started using it, and people started, for 15 days they came up to, in the diary they started recording how they felt and how the experience was. And we saw for Spotify tab there were a lot of triggers, right? One, it is less friction way to start music, especially for older people. We had a lady who whose face lit up be- because she thought like, oh, I don't have to call people to figure out how this works. It's just Bluetooth and I keep changing and that's good enough for me. It also helped people decouple from their phone, right? Like, I just have to press this button. I don't have to go on my phone to change music. And then when I do that, I get into Instagram, I get into Facebook, and now I'm in the loop that I don't want to be. It takes away this decision making paralysis of what to play. And when you don't know what to play, we've seen that you tend to go back to things that you already know, which is your recently played list or things like that, and you keep playing that over and over again. And then it comes up in your Spotify rap that, hey, you listened to Taylor Swift 100 times this time. So that's exactly what will happen. But this also created an element of surprise that when you tap, you're like, oh, this song, I never expected to hear it. There was an element of surprise, which gave new music, which helped people discover new music. And in some way, a lot of people said, this is good bragging rights for me. When somebody comes in and it's a social setting, I can show this off to people, right? But there were some barriers too. Like when we saw that when we looked at some of the moments, and again, this is a hypothesis because we don't have the real behavioral data. We saw some hypothesis that in social settings, the rating sort of went down at certain moments and Spotify tap was pressed more. So we understood that social setting is really something where, there is some sort of tension. There is a place, this is a place that we can deep dive and understand what is happening. And of course, when we did the follow-up interviews, we figured out that, okay, there's a lot of recommendation pollution that is happening because you use the same account for kids music, you use it for your own music, then you use it for sleep music and meditation music and all of that. So in a social setting, this is sort of becoming polluted, right? Again, personal playlists may not be liked by others, or you may be embarrassed of your personal playlist as well. Sometimes if you have, I don't know, Justin Bieber there, I like Justin Bieber, but yes. And then there was also physical distance between the speaker and the user, which made music, controlling the music a lot difficult, right? Because if I'm gardening here and I'm playing the music in the kitchen and I want to change the music, I have to walk all the way here, or I have to pick up my phone and then change the music, which sort of defeated the purpose of decoupling yourself from the phone to begin with, right? Okay, so this is what we found, and the summary of everything that we went through. One, awareness was low. People don't understand where to find Spotify tab. People don't understand how Spotify tab functions. There is recommendation pollution and there is accessibility issue. All of this is some like key findings that we had. With the awareness is low thing, that somewhat can be contradicted with the fact that we can say, hey, but this was also just a testing. We haven't done anything in the social media. We haven't done enough communication about it. The point of sale communication is going to help a lot with this awareness. So when we had a finding like this, IKEA and Spotify agreed together that we'll put more marketing into this, and we will be conscious about, that awareness can be low if you're just opening a box. So there was a lot of we agreed to do a lot of point of sales awareness as well. Then when it comes to recommendation pollution and accessibility, Spotify believed that if we make recommendation better, like if we take out meditation music from this, if we take out kids music away from this, if we take out the sleep music away from this, then the recommendation will become better, and therefore in some way it will also solve for the accessibility issue. Because if you are okay with the recommendation, you have no need to change it, so you let it keep playing, so you don't have to keep going. So it somewhat solves for that issue, right? But then two more issues were left, which is users don't understand where to find Spotify tab, users don't understand how the Spotify tab functions, right? So we had some solutions for this. One was we changed visually how the manual would look like, where we're clearly indicating that Spotify tab is the power button, and all of this was brought in the front page of it. The second thing we thought was, let's put a sticker around the power button on the speaker, and then you still have the branding of Spotify tab. So let's see how that works, right? So this is also one of the solution we thought of. Again, all of the solution we're brainstorming with IKEA. It's not just Spotify doing this, right? Okay. Then we thought, if you're putting a sticker, why not put a QR code right there, which not only tells you, hey, this is the Spotify tab button, but when you scan the QR code, it'll also open a page or a GIF where you can see how it functions, right? So you're hitting two birds in one stone. So we thought that's going to really work. And truly, like, the internal team in Spotify were backing this option, because we thought this is like one of the best possible solutions going forward. So to conduct this, to test this, because you have three different options, right? What did we do? We had 30 users in total, and 10 users each. We did an unmoderated unboxing survey where we sent out these speakers to people. We had like a bunch of questions there, and people answered those questions based on how they answered, and they were recording this entire time themselves, unboxing this. So we figured out whether they understood something, whether they looked at the manual, whether they looked at the sticker, all of these things to figure that out, right? So yeah, quiz time. Which one do you think was a winning solution? Solution one, which had no sticker, but just the changes in the manual. Solution number two, which had the sticker on the power button, and of course the manual is also changed a little. Or solution three, which had the QR code and the sticker, and there was a manual change. Solution one, who thinks one was better? Okay.
Better or chosen at the end?
Sorry?
Better or chosen at the end?
It's the same. Like
Okay.
if solution number two, who thinks was better? Okay. Solution number three, who thinks was better? Okay, I see. Three. Okay. All right. So here's what happened. With solution one, it really did not solve the problem, right? Because people are still skipping the manual. Then they're not seeing where the Spotify button is. They don't know how it functions, and they're using it as a regular Bluetooth speaker. So we saw it didn't really truly solve the problem. With solution three, it created more problems, actually. When users took out their phones to scan the QR code, they had issues getting to the site, they had issue understanding the GIF that was there. It didn't simplify things for them, and made it even complicated for users, because now they have to whip out their phone to scan, and they were doing multiple attempts because some phones doesn't do really well scanning QR codes. However, solution two was what the users chose and really understood, because it was a perfect balance of curiosity to tell, hey, this is the Spotify tab button. And then they used to go to the manual and see how it functioned, because it created enough curiosity for them to go to the manual and actually check it out. Okay, impact. So what happened after all, right? So we were able to convince IKEA and Spotify, both of them, like we were able to convince to say that, hey, we need to do something about awareness. And we did put more effort into awareness than we initially thought we would. Also, Spotify agreed to continuously improve the recommendation algorithm, especially because this is a social setting and it was required. The research itself, the findings from the research influenced how the manual was created and what sort of wordings went into it. So it largely influenced that. And research was able to push IKEA to consider that for further partnerships, when you're choosing, please choose wisely in terms of the button that you're using for, which you need as Spotify tap, because having dual button, dual functionality of the same power button is probably not working well. And research was able to also prove the benefit of having a sticker around the power button. However, IKEA has their own policies, and they're free to accept or reject it, right? Because ultimately the sticker is going on the Vapaby speakers. And then we were also able to fail fast and understand that the QR code is not working. It's creating more problems. So we should not take the route of QR code to create marketing material or awareness material, but instead use a proper onboarding plan for first-time users. So this is what we were able to figure out. Okay, that's my time. Any questions?
I just thought it's kind of funny because we have two big Swedish companies here. When you study human computer interaction in Sweden, the first thing you learn is about the Ericsson example, where the Ericsson mobile phones had on and off, and it said on. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like a legacy. If you're been to university and studied that in Sweden, like that's the first page it shows. So I'm so surprised that this happens now. Like, what have we learned? Like, you don't have that power button and then you just don't fool with the power button.
Yeah. I agree. Yes.
I have a question related to your target audience.
Mhm.
How did you choose the users? Was it on the side of IKEA or was it on the side of Spotify? Because it's extremely important to have this target users audience, so you know that you can rely on their feedback.
Yeah. So
yeah, how was
Spotify has a target audience between 18 to 60. That's the target audience that we look at. But when we looked at IKEA target audience, it pretty much overlapped. But I think Spotify went in with some hypothesis that we hypothesized that this is something that people with low tech knowledge will really like, because it's an easy way to connect. It's not complicated. So in that target audience, we had older audiences. We also had kids. So we wanted to, because when we did this, we also said that, hey, can you please also tell us how your kids reacted to something like this, right? Because you're playing in a social setting. It's important for us to understand how the rest of the family is also reacting to it. So we did have those. And I think we made a very conscious choice to have a mix of younger, older target audience, younger target audience with kids and without kids as well, just to see if the the hypothesis there was Google, Alexa, all of these really do well when you have kids at home, because they're constantly talking to it, and it's funny to have your kids interact this way, and it's also easier for your kids to interact this way. So we also thought this, like, just pressing this could also be something like that, and we wanted to see if that made a difference. All we know from the study was that kids enjoyed it. They like the novelty effect of it, but this is not something that they want to use on their own. So that's what we figured out. So, any other questions? Yes.
How long did you conduct the research, and how many researchers total were there?
My manager is right behind. So she had told me, this is taking too long. Why don't you wrap it up? It did take a while because we ran into a lot of logistics issue as well, right? You need to send these to users in US and in Sweden. And if they back out, I have to wait for the product to come back because you're only given limited amount of speakers because these are all prototypes, right? So you're only given limited amount of speakers, and then I have to wait for it to come back, give it to somebody else. So it was a logistic nightmare, but it did that, which is why it took a long time. So yeah.
And then we had the Suez Canal.
Yes, yes, that's so true. I'm so surprised you remember that. And I remember having like, oh, okay, this ship is caught there, and a product is coming from Hong Kong, and we had to push this study. Yes, sorry. Your other part of the question was how many researchers? One. Yeah, that's
For you.
More of the
Mhm.
but it's quite interesting how it's two plans working together. But when it came to the physical design, did 45 have any control on that? Because it seems like the button was decided and then it was designed around that, or was there?
I think it was very clear for us that, and also this is something that I learned through this job, because I felt that we should tell everything that the user is talking about, like how it looks like a mushroom or how it looks like Darth Vader. These were all comments, and I was like, should we tell this to IKEA or should we keep it to ourselves? So that was the question too. But then we figured out that this is primarily about partnership, and when we are doing the research as Spotify, our focus is solely on the feature on the speaker, regardless of how the speaker looks like. And when we do a partnership, I think it is important to respect that they know their products better, and it is completely their call, where we can only suggest and say, hey, this is what is happening, maybe next time you consider, but it is completely their call.
So was the speaker fully designed when the partnership kind of began?
So the speaker, I think it initially started with NAB version of it, which is like a box version. And then we had to pivot and say that I think some technical issues happened. We had to pivot and say, okay, we're going to use another speaker for this. And that's when this came by. Yes. Yes.
In the end, you released the product.
It's right here.
Yes.
I bought it from IKEA. Like they did. Yes.
In tests like this, how do you determine how many people you're going to run a test with?
How many ever prototypes they were ready to give us. It is. I mean, it's difficult to say because we had to push. Initially, they said 10, but then we said, listen, we're doing this across so many target audience. It'll spread. We're spreading it too thin if we just do 10. And then we had to push them and say, like, we need more. And then internally, the researchers who are doing or the designers who are working also need some material, like the speakers ourselves, to test the product throughout, right? So it does, it is a negotiation that happens. Yes. 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 Sorry. Yes. Yes.
Manager, my ex-tutor. I should ask this in another second, but regard that. I think now it was a partnership. It's 30 devices. But I was at PayPal, everything we got already, like, it's not enough, or, we have partnerships, like, it always feels too little, like, the big data, we always get into that.
Yeah.
I'm not the user researcher, that's why. But my question is, how was that dialogue? Even though IKEA, they chose someone twice, but you're global. Like, IKEA is global. To send 5 devices to the US, it's like kind of like, but do they? Yeah, is it like how was the argument? Because I ended up in that situation. It's like, yeah, we were only allowed to do X amount, but then I still get the product manager or someone else, the business name. It's not enough evidence.
Yes. So I think when we did the 30 as quantity. The reason we chose 30 was because we had 3 different solutions and almost like mini A/B testing within them, like you're testing 10 for each. And I wish I could have done more, but that's all we had. And it was an improvement from just giving 10. I said we can't do 3 each and then come to a conclusion. We need 10 because this was also unmoderated study, right? A lot can go wrong in unmoderated study. And quite honestly, looking back, I wish I hadn't done an unmoderated study. I wish it was a moderated version because it would have been a lot more easier to do that. So, but yes.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't here. But then when you sensitive, you said that you were able to impact, talk about it. Like I sometimes I feel like we do have done this research, but then we go in and we have all these business makers. Not enough. With the data.
Yes, like I said, I think from the beginning we were very aware that it is not instrumented, so we are not going to get big data on this, right? And I think that's the power of qualitative user research also lies in the stories of users that you're able to tell. So when I showed them the reactions of a lady who lit up when she saw this, and like, okay, we understand the story behind it, so we understand. And when you give them numbers that, hey, listen, we did the unboxing, out of 20 of them, none of them or 1 or 2 of them were the only people who understood there is a Spotify tab here. Rest skipped through the
But it's nice to hear, thank you, because it's like your gurus. It's like nice to hear the Spotify in here, like the same. Thank you.
Yes, Rosa, yes.
It's like, we rarely had issues with numbers when it had to do with quality of research. But what the Pulver did as well was beginning to talking about the quant, and she snuck in.
Yeah.
And doing that,
Yeah.
you sort of like, we have these super qual stories, but you also got these quant of these 300 comments. So we did that a lot. It's like we snuck in some quant to like keep people away.
Like I think every organization has a little bit of data versus this. And Rosa knows that in Spotify too, we faced that. But she also was like a flag bearer to say that no, qual data is important. You cannot question on the qual data. And she had enough proof to say that. So it's like the entire team coming together to say that you cannot disregard qual data, right? And at a stage where companies mature, they start to understand this. When a company is like a startup, you're constantly fighting to make them understand.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask, because like clearly, like you just said, this was a mature company where you had like a manager there was fighting for qualitative data. And I had an experience where I was the only researcher, and I couldn't fight for this, and they only wanted numbers, and I had no budget to run qualitative research. If you were in the situation, how would you do it?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I think that's also the situation that I am in. And currently, I can only tell what I am seeing. There is no buy-in for research, but for a couple of leadership, right? One way is to do is figure out who your sponsors are in a way, push them to push others to see value. One is that. 2, also look at I think when I had a conversation with my CEO about what is that you don't know, and you feel like this is a knowledge gap that you have, and then choosing to do research on that particular thing will make them see value in the kind of research that you're running, instead of you taking a view about, okay, I understand we need to do an end-to-end, but maybe your CEO is not looking at that end. So I think that's one of the things that really helps. So we have, yes. Sorry, yes.
Were you able to do any post-sales research, since the recommendation was clearly the QR code? Sorry, not the QR code, sorry, that sticker.
But it didn't happen. The sticker didn't happen.
So here I feel like there was the IKEA was not ready to put the stickers on. So were you able to do any post-sales research to perhaps influence them or change that?
Usually what happens is once you finish this, and it starts getting instrumented, behavioral data starts to flow. You look at the behavioral data. But I didn't stay long enough to know what happened after this. So that's the honest answer. Well, usually you start seeing behavioral data come in, and you will see, okay, how is this performing? Is it, and you compare it with other things, right? Like, okay, headphone also had Spotify tap. This also had, how are they comparing? So yeah. Yes, hi.
So in the diary study, were you able to understand the value of the product over time? Like when I get it, I use it all the time to test, and then I just put it on a corner and never see it. Were you able to identify if there were some type of users who were more recurrent or others that were tired of it?
I think you're going to have a bit of both. Some people use it a couple of days and they don't want to use it, and then we're constantly giving them reminders to use it, give me feedback about it. But I think when we make them use it as well, whether they like it or not, they're still going to like, no, this is not the recommendation I wanted. Like, why is the same song coming twice in the same day? And that's still a good feedback for us. And I think the project management here, because we use D-Scout for this, they have good product managers there, and who constantly ping and say, hey, just a reminder, you need to do this, which is a good thing to push people to respond. Yes.
I was curious about you did research for this speaker and the same feature was applied on headphones. Was there anything in common in terms of behavior?
Yes. So it was first done on headphones, and then we took it to the speakers. So I think pretty much the triggers for using was very similar between headphones and the speaker, right? The fact that it takes away decision making, the fact that you're listening to new songs, which creates an element of surprise, the fact that you're listening, new music is being discovered because it surprises you. All of this was pretty similar between headphones and speakers. So.
Now, okay, maybe this goes into more like creator mode. I was just curious, like the idea of that, was that created by Spotify or was it IKEA which said that? Because I mean,
no, that's a Spotify creation. So Spotify made this and first applied on headphones. And then we saw, oh, this is good response rate and success. So we can do this with other partners as well in that. And when IKEA came, we thought, okay, this is great.
voice. There's one scenario that you walk through, like, someone's in a garden and you can't touch it, and that's something that you would build a value.
Mm-hmm.
So was voice ever an option? And again, did Spotify even have control of that to use IKEA's product?
We did venture into how it would look like, but as a thought exercise only. If it had to be done, it had to be on a voice-enabled Wi-Fi speaker that IKEA provides us. And then we do, and we knew that there are issues with voice already. We had done some research about it, and we knew what are the issues with saying playing this and like broadcasting what they're playing to others. And so we knew there was something, but it never moved forward.
But I mean, the latest product in this line is like
Yeah. Yep. Which is on your Spotify app. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any more questions? That's it. All right. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I forgot to play this.